Hi, welcome to Romance Writers Therapy.
Oh, you did the introduction.
Yeah. Don't I usually?
Weird. No, we've started just like talking, and then like at some point I'll just be like, oh yeah, and by the way, this is Romance Writers Therapy. I'm Marty V. That's Kate Pryor, which is all true, listener. But yeah, we've been like just kind of small chatting, and then small chatting. It's gonna be a good night, guys.
Yeah.
And then yeah, we just go on about it. Because you said that you liked it because it was more conversational, which is fair.
Oh, yeah, all right. That does sound like something I would say, and then forget that I said, let's do that. You've probably been like, let's do it this specific way every single time. And I'm like, absolutely lost in it. Like, not even thinking about it.
I don't know. I don't even know how I became, like, a person that can accomplish consistency. Like, I don't know how this happened, but...
you're really good at the consistency thing, I think, like, in my opinion.
It's like one of those things that, like, when I look at it, I don't see it as a strength of mine. I see all the ways that I have, like, that I can't do consistency. At the same rate, like, when I look at my actual day and, like, how I devote my time and, like, being able to identify, like, this pattern that we normally do on the show, like, yeah, I'm probably a fairly consistent person.
Yeah, I would think so. Because, like,
it's like it's just a blind spot.
Like 5 a.m. every day, or right? Most days.
Yeah, I set my... Well, this week has not been great for it. I set my alarm at 5:30. And then I'm typically sitting and writing somewhere around 6. This week, I mean, I guess it's only been 2 days. I did it one day and I didn't do it today. Today, I just, like, let myself drink coffee and zone out. But I did wake up at 6. So... I mean, that's what I normally... Because I have to write every day in order to make any progress. Because I write so slow.
I don't know how I get writing done. I'm going to be real. Because I don't have, like, that kind of a consistent schedule.
But I feel like the way you get writing done... Because, like, I need to feel like I'm moving from point A to point B to point C in my novel in order for myself to still be engaged in it. Right?
Right.
So, like, you being able to, like, dabble a little on this project and then a little on this project, like, I would not be able to do that because both projects would end up moving too slowly for me to still be, like, interested in them. And so, like, yeah, our brains just clearly, like, do this different. Like, they just function in different ways.
So, this episode's going to be a little weird. Not that any of our episodes are normal. Not that we figured out how to actually do this yet.
No. I hope you get something out of it, and I hope we, like, are interesting to listen to. But I don't know that for sure either. So.
I enjoy listening to us.
I mean, I do too. If this is listeners' first episode, they're definitely like, what are these bitches about?
Yeah, listener, back out of this episode.
First 4 minutes.
Do a U-turn into, like, a different episode.
Yeah, and then come back to us when you've already fallen in love with us. Yeah. When us being awkward and not knowing what we're doing is endearing to you, come back to this one.
Well, so, like, this, I'm trying to remember why we came up with this, which is, the conceit is, I ask you any question I can think of about your writing, like the project you're working on currently. And then you answer them.
Yes. And then I was like, okay, we can do that, but are you ready for the rebuttal of me doing this for you for an entire episode? Are we going to smoosh them into the same episode where I can also ask you questions in this episode, or am I just in the hot seat?
We can't. How would you like to do it? Because, like, that is what I had originally envisioned, but then, like...
Was us going back and forth?
Yeah, like, I had originally thought about that, and then you had said, like, oh, let's do one episode for each, and then I was like, ooh, yeah, that makes more sense, because then we're not, like...
Oh, it makes more sense?
Confusing the listener, like, trying to pay attention to each of our stories, and then, like, not... Like, holding two separate stories in their head at the same time, you know? I feel like that's kind of too much to ask.
I think it's really kind of you to consider listener in that way, because I did not even think about listener listening to this.
Listener, you're not even a consideration.
No. I mean, really, we just put these out there and hopefully someone finds it, and that's, like, what we do.
Oh, okay. I'm just gonna dive right in then.
Dive in, make it happen.
Okay, so the thing you're working on, we've already talked about these projects a little bit with the second chance romance episode because
Mm-hmm.
we're both writing second chance romances with like a number of weird little similarities. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like the way that Lincoln's lawyer was named Jefferson and Jefferson's lawyer was named Lincoln or whatever.
Jim
One of those things.
Jameson.
Jim Jamison?
No, just Jameson. I had to like wander into that name though. Yes, that was the lawyer in my book. His name was Jameson. Is Jameson.
Oh. No, I was talking about like a weird history fact. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna move on.
Good Lord.
I don't want to linger on it.
Kate, help me. I don't want to linger on it. You don't have to. Just
like it was just a weird fact, and as I'm saying it, I'm like, there's no way I'm getting this right.
Well, and then I'm correcting you. How confusing.
And then you're like, no, that's not what it was. I'm like, I don't think your thing is that either.
Listener, if you're still here, you are a goddamn saint tonight. Like,
yeah, listener, if you make it to the end, you win a prize.
You are one of the diehards, okay? And leave us a review. Don't leave a review on this episode. It's not okay. Okay, but Kate, go do what you want to do.
All right, so your book is a little bit... It's a second chance romance. These two have been divorced,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the second or third in a series, right?
Second.
And it's so weird that, like, you have all these contemporary romances that
Mm-hmm.
I kind of, like, for the most part, have been, like, they all take place in the same town. They are all friends still. Even though that's completely not true.
Well, yeah, because, like, I was... Remy is a side character in Just Fake Married, and so it's kind of like the world is... It's all the same. I also
then it absolutely is true.
Yeah, because I also pictured originally I was going to have like Hazel from the first in this series be the sister to Willow in Truth or Dare series, right?
Ooh,
but then I was like, okay, you're just interconnecting too much for your brain to handle right now. So I might still interconnect the Love Embezzlement series as well through like a side character.
So like because they all take place in the contemporary worlds.
Yes.
It would be very easy just to connect them.
Yeah. Yeah, like maybe Britta will be a side character in the Love and Embezzlement series. Or something.
Yeah.
Since she's already in Chicago. Yeah, anyway, just building my own little world here. So
I mean, it's fun
as you do.
Easter egg kind of stuff. Like
it is.
I think when you have people who are like a diehard fan or reader, then it's like, oh my god, this character from the other series is here. Like
yeah.
I love that stuff.
I do love that stuff. You were totally right that yes, the worlds are connected.
You also write about vets a lot.
Yeah, that again kind of happened because of Just Fake Married and Owen being a vet. Which I needed him to work someplace that had donors that would like also potentially be involved in like day-to-day work if they wanted to be, right? Like someplace that there's a donor who could volunteer, right?
Okay, yeah.
In order for the plot to work, right? And I can't remember if, like, I don't know which was the chicken and which was the egg sort of thing, of whether or not I decided he worked at the shelter and then I used the donor angle, or if I needed him to work someplace that would have a donor and therefore he worked at a shelter. But because of him being a vet and being friends with Remy through vet school, it launched me into this small town series based in a veterinarian office, which I already feel bad because, like, I know it lacks a level of accuracy because I don't have any vet techs there.
Oh no.
I know. And like,
I mean, you can have characters that just aren't named or that like they're just like the vet tech.
Well, you know? I feel like the office is too small for that, but like also like I just already know like my bestie who is a vet tech is going to be like, but Amanda,
that works.
or Marty, like, I'm here, like, sort of thing. Also, I did a good job of making sure there was vet techs at the shelter. But anyway, moving on. Just being hypercritical of myself. So, yeah.
It is hard to like get all the little details of the
All
job
of the
that, like,
details.
you've never had, right?
Yeah.
And then like there's always gonna be someone who's gonna be like, we don't do it like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm writing about vets, right? Also, I love animals in life, and then I also really love.
You have a lot of animals of your own.
Yeah, I know, right? I have 2 cats and a dog, and I really love like giving the animals like actual personalities and like making them side characters, and so vets are kind of a great outlet for that.
Okay, so you're human people.
Mm-hmm. I also sometimes write about humans.
Cast. And I'm gonna be real. Sometimes I do feel a bit lost when you're like telling me everybody's names, and I'm like, okay, I don't remember who that one is.
Dude, okay, respect. If I get one note, it's from people. They're like, love all the side characters, but there are a lot of them. And I'm like, yeah.
There are a bunch, and it is only book 2.
It's only book 2. But I'm just still like running headfirst into like, I will make as many people in this town as I want. And just going. And then of course every single person I make up, I'm like, oh, they'd have a cute story like this, and they'd have a cute story like that. And so I just, just continue to want to write about all of these fake people in my brain. Mm-hmm. I like how you're not getting an opportunity to actually ask a question. I just start telling you information.
These are all the questions I had prepared.
Should I start asking you questions?
No. Let me get to the bottom of my less than quality question.
Okay. It's really good that you came prepared with questions, though, because I would have to come up with some, like, off the top of my hat, which I probably could.
Mm. You wearing a hat?
Never. No, that's not true. I like stocking caps. You know what is my favorite, though, is that knitted headband you gave me a couple years ago.
I forgot I sent that to you.
Yeah, I wore it today. I love it.
I have a bunch more of those.
Keep them coming, lady.
I know exactly one stitch. And when it comes to knitting, so like I just keep making these weird little headbands and being like, all right, someone will wear these.
Okay, so I have a friend who is amazing at knitting, right? Like, we'll knit like these really cute patterned sweaters for her and her boys and her husband, and like we'll knit like little dolls and stuff like that for her like little nieces and nephews. And then I'm like, I got a scarf. I can make one big straight line, mostly straight line. I can make it mostly straight line.
That's how it goes. It
is.
I got one thing I can do. You're not gonna get a pretty scarf. You're gonna get a very plain scarf.
I love my headband though. Also, we still have a couple of the stocking caps that you made for the kiddos too. But like, also scarves. I tried doing a hat and I couldn't ever reduce it down correctly without it being really janky at the top. Like, I do not reduce. I just make a scarf and then I tie it all together on one end. Good idea. Right? And then you put a pom-pom on it and then it's like, you can't even tell that this isn't really a hat. I love it. I should do that. This has been knitting time. Right. So my question was going to be, can you explain your cast of characters to me? Just because there are... You want the names? I want the names, their occupations, how they know each other. Because I got Alicia and Remy, and I got Hazel and Elijah and Lily. That's all the characters I can keep straight. That are locked in your brain? Okay. No, you know Nora. Yeah. You love Nora. Oh, yeah. Eventually, I remember Nora, but not all the time. Okay, so the 4 main characters of this series are Hazel, and she owns the vet clinic, and she is the heroine of the first book. And then we have Remy, who is a friend of hers from vet school. And then we have Brooks, who is the large animal vet, and he is more quiet. Yeah, he's got his own thing going. Brooks, I love my quiet characters. And then we have Nora, who is definitely like, Nora's running the shots. Like, she knows what she's doing. She's pulling all the levers. She's cooler than everybody else in every single room. And
absolutely.
Oh, she's such a badass.
She gives off.
She is so in fucking control. And so I'm really looking forward to like just knocking down her house of cards. Anyway,
yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna mess up our poor little Nora. And then we have Elijah, who used to live in the town at the beginning of the series. And he ends up with Hazel, and he works in IT doing like cybersecurities.
Oh, I don't know why I pictured him as like a bad boy type.
Because the
These
reputation.
Things aren't mutually exclusive.
Yes. You cannot work in cybersecurities and be a bad boy type.
Just not allowed. I don't
Okay.
believe it. If you ride a motorcycle, the words "Can you restart your computer, please?" have never left your mouth.
Never. Okay, but I went to a wedding with a friend who, like, all of his, like, he went to a local, like, a really good tech school in Michigan, right? I mean, I see exactly why you'd get that impression based on everybody else we were hanging out with. Like, everyone was so nice, but not a motorcycle in sight, for sure. Like, no, not their vibe. But, you know, there's an outlier for everything, right? And also it's romance. Right. You can do whatever you want. And like,
true.
Elijah is actually not a bad boy, but like because of the like reputation the town kind of assigned him, that was the vibe everybody had of him, right? Like that's why you have that bad boy vibe from him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then there's Alicia, who is with Remy in the second book. And I kind of feel like I should have told you everybody by character by book. But anyway, Alicia was and is Remy's ex-wife, and now they're getting a second chance romance. She is in like water conservation, I guess is what you would call it, right? Like she like goes and preserves, like fights to preserve like wetlands and stuff like that. And so that's why she is in town, because there's a marsh that she's trying to keep from getting developed.
So I thought she moved there like permanently, right?
No, she's supposed to be there part-time.
No?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. That's like an element that isn't going to be an active element of tension in the book.
It kind of isn't, because Remy's just like, look, I am just your puppy dog. I'll follow you anywhere. like I don't care. I can get a job in Chicago. I don't care. Right? Like,
you could really use the like, but I have to leave. We can't really get into anything. It was always going to end because we were always going to go our separate ways. You know?
Without giving too much away, I guess. But, like, because of, like, when the straw actually breaks the camel's back, it doesn't really serve, I don't think, to have that tension there. Like,
okay.
It serves in the sense that she's like, I just have to withstand this long enough before I leave. Like, I need to get this job done so that I can go home. So that is where the tension serves, right? Where she is just like, she's trying so hard to get, like, this marsh locked down so that she can GTFO. So that's where that, like, tension serves. But, like, by the time, like, you know, Thundercats are go, like, Remy's just like, I just don't want to live my life without you. Ever. So, like, where you go, I go. Sort of thing. Like, he's just very much, he's got absolutely no game. He is the most earnest man. Like, so but yeah, so that's our girl Alicia. And then our pairing for Brooks is Olivia, Nora's twin sister, who is kind of like where Nora has become uber cool by being like, I'm trying to think of like a character to compare her to, but like she's become uber cool in like a very Gen X sort of way, where like She's like, I'm just too fucking cool for school, right? Like,
Okay.
like she just, there's like a sarcastic girly thing about her, right? Like she's just the most dry person in a lot of ways, right? She just is untouchable.
Okay.
Olivia has become uber popular by fitting in with everybody, right? Like she is just like everyone's mirror, and she's loved for it, right?
I don't think I've heard all that much, like seen her all that present.
You haven't, because she is living with her fiance. I know. So, okay, in book 1, she's not engaged yet, but she is living elsewhere with her live-in boyfriend, like long-term boyfriend, right?
Okay.
And we see her for a scene, and we get some tension there. And then there's talk about how she's going to get engaged. And then in the epilogue of book 1, we hear that she actually is engaged, right? So then when we see her in book 2, which based on where we left off, like you would be pretty close to meeting her on page. So in book 2, she is engaged and like drama ensues. Like, so that's Olivia. And then Nora's pairing at this point is Elijah's best friend, Sebastian, who like where Nora.
Do you want to give it away?
Why?
I don't know, like if you didn't want to give it away for people who are getting spoilers for the future series.
I mean, I honestly think that like if you've read the second book, like you know how everyone's like pairing aligns.
You think it's obvious?
Okay. It is to me. like I wrote it in there intentionally. That like the reader come book 2 is rooting for the hero and heroine for book 3. Does that make sense? So like I feel okay. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so Sebastian is very much like a city boy. He doesn't like dirt road places. So like the small town little place is not for him. But he really has the hots for Nora. And like where Nora is like the immovable object, Sebastian is the unstoppable force. And so like just collision. Lily, who Kate has talked about, was never meant to have her own story. She's kind of an antagonist.
So far.
Yeah, and like she is an antagonist in the first book too. She's such a goofball. She's just kind of very bitchy. But like yeah, I see why Kate and everybody latched onto her. Like she's just kind of like who the fuck does that? Like sort of thing.
Yeah.
And like, so I see why she would be really fun as a heroine. And it would be a really challenging like writing experience for me to be like, here is somebody who doesn't always make the most adult decisions. Right? And so like, it would be a really interesting like challenge for me to write her and have her be so antagonistic. And then her dog is Rocco. I have no idea who her...
Oh, everyone comes with a dog.
Well, she has a dog. But she got... Okay, so one of the jokes in the first book is that she buys... she buys vet visits and the bachelor auction in the first book. But she doesn't have a pet. And so she goes out and she gets a giant fucking pet. Because Remy's a big man. She makes the comparison.
Oh my god.
Because she's so fucking wild. Who the fuck is this lady? But like...
yeah, the scene where you have her like raise her tit against him.
Oh my god. She's so
like
weird.
When I read that, I was like, I need to tell her to take it out. Like like
okay.
I've never had that reaction to anything else you've written.
But like, okay.
And I was like so viscerally like taken aback, like, oh no, this can't stay in here.
Okay, but I pulled it from a friend's real life experience.
Oh my god.
Of like a woman really coming onto him like so fucking hard while he was at work. And he's like, I mean, her entire side boob was on my arm. Like it was just smooshed together. So,
Look, I'm not saying it doesn't happen in real life, but like I took
but it is a
actual
weird thing to
psychic
do.
damage from reading that.
I mean, give it a shot. Maybe it's a thing that you like. Don't knock it till you try it.
I refuse to believe that would ever work on anybody.
I mean, I don't know if it's worked. It didn't work on my friend. But, like, doesn't mean people haven't tried it. Anyway, no, Lily's absolutely insane. And
yeah,
like she's a hoot. Who else do I have? I have Shane Breyer, who is Elijah's antagonist. And then I have Everett, who owns the stables. Kate, we could do this for days. I think we need to stop with the cast.
If you feel like you've reached all of your...
Oh, no, there's so many more. Millie owns Country Grounds, the local coffee shop, and Mrs. Simmons is the librarian, and like I could go for days. Anyway, because I also have the whole Strauss family in there too, who yeah,
so,
it's just ridiculous.
Back to the main characters of the actual book that we're talking about.
Okay, so that's Remy and Alicia. Yes.
I want to introduce a couple ideas that we didn't start with at the top, maybe, but mayhaps should have. So every now and then, Marty and I do this thing called soundboarding, which it's also called rubber ducking in other fields, which is when you take a rubber duck and you explain all of your thinking and your plotting and your whole process, everything you're doing to the duck until you find the place where you made the mistake or you find the thing that like you were stuck on. And because it helps kind of bring everything back into that whole picture kind of look at it.
Yes, I cannot tell you, listener, how many times I have started like writing out like the thing that I am troubled by to Kate, and then I will either send it to her and be like, hey, I figured it out just by telling you this, or I just delete it because just writing it out makes it make sense.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of times where like just calling you and like trying to explain what the problem is makes me realize, oh, that's actually how I want to solve it. Never mind, goodbye.
Yeah, exactly.
In kind of like an effort to, I don't know, model what soundboarding looks like when we do it, at least.
Okay.
Doesn't need to be like, this is how you do it, but, you know?
Okay, I love it. Yeah. What would you like to soundboard?
Ooh, well, no, so not me. I was like, if you have any problems, I would love to like hear what you're working through currently. But before we get to that, I would love to give listener a kind of eagle eye view of the elements you've set up. And how you've kind of like what you've gotten through so far of the story, what your planning internally looks like, even if you haven't plotted out the chapters or made an outline, like what your kind of internal process looks like right now. Like,
okay. Well,
catching us up to speed.
At this exact stage, I have gone through, I've quote unquote written the first draft. And it was evaluated by an editor. And then
fancy.
Yeah, I know. So fancy. And then I like kind of wrote out my own notes based on what she said needed to happen. I wrote out my own notes in a completely separate file.
Right.
And then I took those notes and went chapter for chapter, like made bullet point assessments of what needs to happen in that chapter to satisfy the notes I received. Right? So that's where I'm at right now. Honestly, the amount of notes is like very light. So the biggest thing is shoring up like the character's arc. And so my biggest concern at this point is that I don't know how I feel about the arc I gave Remy, even though it fits so well into the book.
Right.
So the arc I gave him is like that when he thinks about his future, he imagines himself like with a lifetime partner and with like children. Like he imagines himself as a dad. But the flaw in that is that he still pictures Alicia, even though they've been divorced for 5 years. And so he's like, I should not devote myself to someone else when like I am clearly not okay. Right? Like, can I not see myself with someone else because I still have very real feelings for my ex-wife? Or can I not see myself with someone else because because I've never given anyone else a real try, right? So like he doesn't really know. My issue with that is like I feel like a lot of times, and probably particularly in romance, the idea of like a family and kids gets sold as like, now you're happily ever after. But there are so many people that choose not to have children and they are happy. And there's so many people who like live a very fulfilled single life. And so I don't like the way it feels to write that into the book when I don't know if it could further the societal pressure to like have a family to therefore be fulfilled.
Okay, yeah.
And so it's like kind of like an insecurity about like what role I play in other people reading this sort of thing. And so if it's very much boiled down to that's what this character wants, and it's not something that I'm subliminally like putting on anyone else, then I'm okay with it. But is there even a possible way to do that with how our society is set up?
I think you can make it clear that by having another character who's like, you get Remy maybe to kind of reassure them that, hey, no, you're allowed to want the things you want out of your life. And if that includes not having kids or
That's a good point.
And like, like I think if you put that kind of a moment in, I don't know how much of a subplot you want to make that. I think you could really drive it home by making it a strong, healthy subplot, or you can just have it as a moment, like as a little disclaimer, like, hey, it's just this character.
That's a good point. So like literally like in the front matter, putting it in there as like, hey, this is just a reflection of this character, but like not the way I think society should approach child rearing sort of thing. Like
I didn't mean it like an actual disclaimer. I meant like have a character who,
because I
wanted different things.
I definitely prefer like using a different character.
Okay.
But when you said like, I don't know, you said something like putting that up front, and I was like, okay, like literally up front, like in the like CW's, like sort of thing.
No, CW's nuclear family.
Indeed, CW's nuclear family. I mean, but really, people deserve to be warned. So and like that was the other thing is like I really like my books to be someplace that like people can just go and have fun and like just like have good feelings, right? Like there's tension and everything. And I'm not saying like there aren't like my first book tackles like watch Marty unpack her religious trauma in real time. Like it's there, but like it's still a very light read, right? And so you never know like what's going on in someone's life. And so like particularly in romance, how it tends to be so baby oriented. It just makes me like, I like the idea of somebody who like either is choosing not to have a baby or, is having all sorts of different feelings about it. Like I like my books to be someplace that they can go and just not worry about it. But at the same rate, like it kind of doesn't make sense that I would have, 100 books and not a single baby among them. You know what I mean? Like that isn't for everybody. And so, I don't know, I'm also like, it's okay. Like, it's okay if this character wants this. Some people do. Yeah. So that's what I'm dealing with right now. That's my big internal drama.
Also, that's Remy's plot. Like, because we've been talking a little bit about how you wanted to give them both stronger character growth over the general arc of the book.
Well, I kind of, again, built on something that was already there for Alicia. And I feel good about Alicia's. So Alicia, is all about conserving this marsh. But, like, I tied it to, like, this idea that after the divorce, actually getting to make a difference in the planet, like, gave her a sense of hope that was really challenging for her.
Aww.
Yeah. And then anytime she's ever failed, she very much feels like it's because she wasn't enough. So, yeah. So she has her stuff to work through, that's for sure. And, like, I feel good about where she's at. It's just, it's Remy. But, like, honestly, like, the amount of notes is very, very menial. And I just have to, I feel like the ending, aside from having, like, the steamy scenes to write, I feel like I also want, like, some more romance hero moments, right? Like, I feel like we have so much pining in the front of the book that like it would be really satisfying to like see this like relationship for another chapter or so. I not too much more, but like just one more chapter sort of thing of them actually like being flirty and cute.
So I kind of want to know more about their initial breakup because I feel you've told me about it a couple of times. I don't think it's really stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think we've kind of gone over it in like a bigger scheme of things.
Yeah, it's not like any one like catalyst point. It's very much like a death by a thousand cuts sort of thing where like they like fundamentally did not communicate well. And so like Remy would get mad and get sullen and like clearly be mad at her, but like if she asked, he'd be like, "No, I'm fine." Right? And then like he'd be shitty about something small to antagonize him, to like pay attention to her. She would like go out with friends and not respond to text messages and then like come back and be like, "What? I was just out with friends. Like it's not a big deal." Right? And so it's like they were just both like definitely taking jabs at each other's soft points. And then yeah, it's just kind of snowballed them into like, I kind of feel like because Alicia's more impulsive, like she probably initiated the divorce before she was really to that point, but it was almost like that, like again, that jab at Remy, right? And then instead of Remy being like coming into himself and being like, whoa, like, okay, we are in a very serious spot, he was like, "Oh no, I'll one up you." Right? And so like, I feel like it was a combination of just like them not communicating well and being kind of wrapped up in their own toxicity and like pulling all those worst traits out of each other.
I feel like that's definitely something we're a little afraid to make characters like a little bit. I see a lot of people write characters that it feels like they're afraid to give them a flaw.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah, 100%. And then like, yeah, it's really annoying because like everyone, like readers are like, "Oh my gosh, like we don't need a Disney prince, like give me someone real," right? But then when you do, they're like, "Oh my god, he's such a dick." He's like,
yeah, kind
of relatable behavior, right? Like we've all seen it before. And so like I see why people shy away from it. And if I was anyway, again, it comes back to like writing Lily's story. Like I see how that will really challenge my bravery, right? like the pairing I'm planning on making there is definitely like, these are two people that no one will really see as like having redeemable moment, right? And but at the same rate, like if everyone who loves the series is like walking into, or like loves this world is walking into reading this book, they will either love to hate them or I will actually convince them to love them. And so that's an interesting like place to be in.
Right. No.
Yeah.
You hear so much about like, I see it all the time on like threads where people are saying like, "Oh, I want to write or I want to read about an unlikable female character." You know, like we always, we never have those. And it's like, yeah, because y'all hate them.
Yeah, exactly.
Y'all get real mad about them.
Also, I do actually love quote unquote unlikable female characters, and I could give you a decent list. But like to me, like if you don't love them, then you don't actually see them. Right? Like in my experience,
it's such a weird.
Yeah, they're cynical because they've been hurt. They're like closed off because they're so sensitive and they haven't been allowed to be in a safe space. Like they're just like, it's awesome, right? Like I love those female leads. I know, because again, I wrote this knowing that I thought it was like kind of a death by a thousand cuts, but not really understanding what all of those little things meant. So as I go through and edit, like I kind of have to layer that foundation a little bit better. And then kind of, I don't know, like they start off on such a strange, like they get face to face on such a strange note. I can see them both being caught off guard, but like I kind of feel like I could be a little bit more, not necessarily like enemies to lovers, but like a little bit more like conflict between them based on their past.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see how it works out in editing and how I feel about it. Because, like, the thing is, like, they've both have done so much to kind of understand their own behavior and reactions in the past 5 years that, like, I want to make sure that's reflected even before, like, anything romantic is between them, right? And so I'm kind of just playing around with that as well. It's just kind of, like, even before, like, just kind of reassuring the reader at the very top, like, they have grown, right? Like, before
Yeah. No,
Alicia or
definitely.
Remy know that about each other, the reader does.
It's so interesting to like write because like the whole point of a romance is to convince the reader that these two people are right for each other, you know? Even if the characters can't see it. However, when you're writing the second chance, you're like, I also have to convince you that they were very wrong for each other at one point.
Yeah. Or, like, they were right for each other, but, like, not yet, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, that almost, like, losing each other is, like, what has to prove, like, has them understanding, like, them yeah, absolutely. Like, without that push, they wouldn't have fixed things. Yeah, second chance is weird.
It is, and, like, that's definitely something that, like, in my own I've been shying away from and kind of struggling because I didn't really want to lean into, like, who they were before. And, like, even though I fully want to, like, at one point write about, like, a short story for who they were the first time around. And, like, that can still, like, be a romance and not just, like, a really toxic,
yeah,
you know, two people stuck in a room yelling at each other
yeah.
the entire short story.
I feel like you have to make sure that the tenderness is there too, right? And, like, it made me think of a line from, like, Lemonade, and I'm gonna paraphrase because I don't know it off the top of my head, but, like, from Beyonce's album Lemonade, where she's, like, talking about how, like, her greatest pain was also, like, her salvation, and how those two, like, how, oh man, how those two things are, like, so, you can't hurt like that if you don't love someone like that.
And the inverse is true. Like, if you don't love someone like that, you'll never get hurt like that.
No, absolutely. No. I mean, like, thinking of things that, like, a stranger could say to me, and I'd be like, cool, dude, have a good day, right? Like, I don't fucking care. But, like, those same things coming out of Andrew's mouth, I would be a mess, right? Like, part of your identity is how you perceive yourself seen through their eyes.
Okay, I feel like we've gone a little off topic.
Yeah, no joke.
But is there anything else that when you're with this story that you want to tell me about that isn't just recapping the plot? Because I don't want to spoil that for the readers or the listener if they're ever gonna pick this up and read it.
I wrote some of my favorite metaphors in this book. Like,
ooh, okay.
Of any book I've ever written, some of my favorite metaphors are in this book. And it was, like, it was such an interesting slow burn to write. And I almost feel like it's so much less, because, like, I feel like when you read it, you don't get much of a sense of, like you get a sense of Remy's physical presence, right? But you don't get much of a sense of Alicia's.
Okay, yeah.
And so I'm wondering if that's something I need to go through and strengthen, or if it is just great that, like, Remy, it's essentially, like, who she is on her fiber is, like, what he's drawn to. And, like, is that great? Or is that something that I should change for the readership?
I think it's definitely an audience kind of question. And you think about, like, who is reading this and, like, what are they expecting to get out of it?
Yeah, you know? And, like, I would say that it is typically, like, the physical presence is more common in my books, so I probably should include it just to, like, have it be there for for, like, the readers. But I think it'll still be lighter than any other book I've written. I don't know. It'll be really interesting to go through and reread as I do my edits, because, for one thing, the experience of writing this was so different than normal. It's a trope that, like, kind of brought me out of my depth. It's all kind of, like, hazy in my mind when I think about like how the story leads one to another. But then again, like, man, I mean, my notes on plot and pacing were like, good girl, you did a great job. You have rising conflict all the way through. You did a good job, right? Like, and so I'm also like, okay, well, I should trust that on a lot of levels too, right? Like, it'll be better when I get this round of edits done, and based on what, you know, ARC readers say, or, you know, reviews say, oh, this was one of the things you were talking about. But I might make changes to it before, you know, publishing it outside of the anthology. I don't know, Kate. Kind of feel like I'm sure there's so much more I could say.
No,
but
I'm
like,
sure
really,
like tomorrow you'll be like, I wish I included this.
Yeah, exactly.
This.
I can't really think of, I mean, the hook is that like Remy and Alicia realize that they are living next door to their ex-husband and wife, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean, that's some decent hook. That's a good hook. I like it. Things to play with there. Get in the mud. Kate, do you have a piece of writing advice?
Ooh, I think it's such a fantastic, like, what's been working for me, because like I told you I was working on my werewolf story, and then like I was so full steam ahead on this story when I was supposed to be working on my gargoyle book, and I just kept moving to this next thing that was like the most exciting thing. And then like I had maybe a couple of weeks when I was finished with gargoyle where I was like, all right, let's see how far I can keep this going. And then I like just immediately ran out of steam on it.
Yeah. Okay, that's something I'm dealing with, is like I'm at a wall on this thing. Like, it's like, and like I'm really lucky because like when one faucet turns off in my brain, other faucets turn on, right?
Yeah.
So like the faucet for creative writing is just turned off. But the faucet for like, hey, let's organize the house is turned on. So
yeah, no, that's always wild that it's like, oh, I could get so much cleaning done while procrastinating on my book.
Absolutely.
Wild that is such a common experience.
Yeah, so I'm like, also dealing with that.
For a couple of weeks or even a month, I was like really trying to force myself to continue working on it, even though all the steam had like gone out of it for me. And by extension of that, not work on anything new or anything else that was giving me joy. I always do this where like, I'm like, don't work on the things that bring you joy. Only work on the things that, you know, you have to get done. And then it's like, it's so easy to fall back into this mindset of make yourself miserable. And then, you know, like, and it amazes me every single time. I've no doubt that I've said this piece of writing advice like a million times before on this podcast, because it's the only thing I got mainly. But if the moment I started working on like this other project that has absolutely no expectations on it, you know, it started refilling my cup or whatever, and giving me energy, and then it's like, oh, well, now I can use some of that energy on the thing that I was like supposed to get done. It is really interesting how your brain works that way. If I were to start another project, I would just never go back to the first project. And I know this because of experience. When you say like making myself miserable, like I have to do that to get things done. If I pause in working on it, the last thing my brain remembers about it is how hard it was to do. Yeah. And so if I don't get past that stage, get a first draft done or whatever it is, and that way when they come back to it, I am at a new stage in the development, my brain will just never go back to it. All the things that like are making me feel insecure about it will be the only thing I hear in my head. Like, oh, it's not good because of da-da-da-da. Oh, no, I should sack that because of da-da-da-da. Like, that's what will happen in my brain, and I will never go back to it. But, like, your multiple projects really feed each other. Yeah. You know, it's weird that, I don't know. No, I love it. It's what's working for me currently. It's not something I've been able to, like, really juggle both of them before. But I think, like, when I have one project that has, you know, no stakes and no, it doesn't need to be serious in any respect. Okay, but, like, that was kind of your, like, the werewolf book was zero stakes until you gave it stakes.
right?
Exactly. No, I 100% like somewhere in the middle. It's like, all right, now it's got stakes. And then it's like, fuck, I fucked up. You gave it anxiety, man.
You gave it anxiety. Oh, what a mood. Dude, I do wonder, like, what is it about writing that, like, brings me joy? And then, like, what is it about it that, like, stops me, that, like, freaks me out, right? Because, like, right now, when I think about the scenes that I really enjoyed writing, I know they exist in the book, but, like, I'm also like, but was that real? Or are you just romanticizing it? Right? Like, that's the stage I'm at. But it was
thing
real.
That, like, I come back to a lot is that when you... So, not to get, like, into a heavy topic or anything, but, like, when you are... One of the things that you're supposed to do if you're, you know, super depressed and you've been depressed for a while is to, like, rearrange things in your home.
That's interesting. Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, practice getting out into the world and going places you haven't been, even if it's just like a new coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
What you're supposed to do is move things out of where they have existed for you.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, like, introduce your brain to new stimulus, essentially.
Which is not something that depression wants.
Yeah, no.
It sounds really hard.
Because it does. But, like, that's kind of, like, what causes depression and, like, what feeds into it is that everything looks the same. And if you do something, like, as simple as putting your couch on the other side of the room, you can, like, really start to feel, like, your brain perking up a little bit. Just a little. Like, you have to keep moving your couch. No, like, you keep shifting things.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think about that so much when it comes to a passage that, or a chapter that you may have read at least 10 times because you've rewritten a paragraph here and there a bunch of times, or because you're like, all right, I gotta reuse this part, or I have to edit this part, or, you know, like, whatever it is that has kept you coming back to read it. And that's kind of like what makes you feel like there's nothing good here because it is the same as it was last time.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I always think of it as like Andy Warhol's paintings that repeat the face. And like, yeah, that's the way I see it, is like, I've seen this so many times, it's no longer special to me, right? And like, that was the whole idea of like repeating the faces.
Oh yeah, like the mass production.
Yeah, well, and like Marilyn Monroe's face over and over on the same canvas, right?
See, I've never really dug into Warhol, so like, I'm going off my barest understanding.
Okay, well, don't give me a whole lot of credit. I distinctly remember this from 7th grade art class. So
okay.
But like, the whole idea was that the more you see this face, the less unique it looks, right? And so I carried that into like, oh, that's why my face just looks like my face in the mirror. I see it all the time, every day. Yeah. And so like, I don't see anything particular about it. It's just a very average face to me because it's mine. But like,
100%.
Yeah. And so I carry the same idea into like the way I look at like scenes in my book too, is like, I've seen this so many times that it can't be special anymore.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the sucky part of writing, that like, you can like be over the moon about like a particular scene, and then, you know, 2 months later, it's nothing to you.
I would say it tends to not be nothing to me. I tend to be like, oh, right, that's where the magic was in this moment, right? But it definitely isn't the same thing. It's like an endearing moment as opposed to something that like, I'm like, I did that, right? Like, it's two different feelings.
Yeah.
Did you give your piece of writing advice? Did I cut you off?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Okay. So I guess my piece of writing advice is like, just know that even though you've gone through this so many times, that it's like lost its pretty. Like, when your reader sits down to it, it's the first time they're going to see it, and they'll see the pretty. Just because you repeat Marilyn Monroe's face over and over doesn't make her not like an incredibly unique looking woman. So Kate, where can listener find you?
I am all the socials at by Kate Pryor. Threads, TikTok, Instagram. We are on YouTube as a podcast if you prefer to listen on YouTube, or I don't know why I'm including that. You're already listening to the episode.
Go listen to it again.
You can find my books at kate-pryor.com, on my newsletter, and everything else is there. Heaving Bosoms read Melody Carlisle from Heaving Bosoms read a snippet of my story out loud and posted it to her podcast. So I'm like, yay! Ah! Oh my gosh. And yeah, that's it. That's it from me.
That's so exciting.
Marty, tell me about all your things.
Well, you can find my books at martyv.com. And then you can also sign up for my newsletter there and get the free prequel to Hazel and Elijah's story, where they have a steamy night. And then you can find me at Marty the Author on TikTok and Instagram. And that's me. I think that's it. Listener, hope you got something out of this, kiddo. We'll talk to you later.
I'm sure, people who read the book in the future and love it and then come back and read this episode. You should put a little QR code to this episode.
I should.
Bonus.
Also,
that's it.
We did have some moments in there that were just applicable to all stories. Yeah.
They're bound to happen. I think they're like an occupational hazard.
It's like a broken clock.
Don't say that. We're wrong about most things.
But sometimes we're right. You gotta figure out when. So
yeah.
Okay, listener.
Bye, listener.
We'll talk to you later. Bye.